How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massive Beer Reviews back with a little bit of three-way side-by-side of some beer I've been looking forward to doing for about a week or two now. And that be Weathered Souls. Actual Weathered Souls themselves. It is their Black and Beautiful line, at least portion of it. We have their base stout. This is the brewery that actually spearheaded the whole Black is Beautiful movement within the beer community. And this is their base stout. This is a stout. Got a little bit of notes for you. I know I rarely do that shit. This is a adjunct laden one. This is hazelnut and Wana coffee beans. And over here is actually a collab they did with Islla Street Brewery. And it's a stout with caramel, pecans, and pecans. Pecans? Pecans? I forget which way I hate to say that stuff. And chocolate sugar cookies. So we're talking about 10% across the board. And I'm pumped to dive into these. So this is, I think, the fifth set of these beers I'm going to be reviewing. I believe at the time of this filming, I've only posted one of those reviews, and it's one of my favorite beer reviews I've actually done in quite some time. And go watch it. I dig it. Let's put it that way. Anyway, shortly after that, a viewer, Tony, from down Texas way, he was actually like, "Hey man," he's like, "Have you had these beers from Weathered Souls, the actual like OG Black is Beautiful beers?" I said, "No, man." He's like, let me put a little care package together. Let me send them off to you." Lo and behold, he sends off 3 of them. So he jokingly said, maybe a 3-way side by side. And I said, actually, that's going to happen. So here we go. So if you guys don't know the movement already, I don't understand how you wouldn't. Basically, just like a bunch of beers before Black is Beautiful, whether it be Power to the People beers that I believe Threes kind of spearheaded, and then you have All Together that other have spearheaded for the COVID relief for restaurateurs and workers, and then you have Black is Beautiful, much more, I think, impactful, much more important cause, which is to help one, raise awareness, but also donate and raise money for people of color who are disenfranchised and basically have a hard time getting jobs in the brewing community. So probably one of the cooler charity beers that's come out in quite some time. But we're going to drink it. This is a beer review channel. We're going to talk about them. You should buy them anyway, even if they're good or bad. That's been my stance from the get. But we're going to crack into these, and I'm pumped to try it. So thank you very much, Tony, for sending these off. So I'm not going to read everything on each one of these. Like I said, this is the base. This is the Rwanda bean and hazelnut over here. This one's kind of scary because it's fucking like wants to jump out of the can, so this might explode when I open it. And then we have the Islla Street collab over here, which is awesome because they have actually listed a good portion. I mean, not a complete portion. You don't have a can big enough in the world of the people that have been murdered or assaulted or whatever by corrupt police officers. So yeah, let's dive into the sucker. We're going to try for the ever so complicated 3-way pour. And by that I mean we're not, because that's physically impossible. So we'll pour the base first. And these actually all kind of in camera. That's the best I can do, guys. We'll do the base first, and then we'll do the other 2 on the side. So, ooh, yeah. So like I said, this is the 4th or 5th video I've made for these beers, and yeah, I'm kind of pumped. This is the one that I'm scared about. Let's do it up high in case it explodes so you guys get to see everything, and we'll point it away from me. Oh, nice. It still might jump out of the can, but oh good god, hopefully it's okay. I should have did double pour, but oh, okay, well there you go. Shows you a little bit what's going on in that can. And then we'll give this one a pour, and we'll dive into these suckers. So adjunct base beers can get a little bit aggressive in the carbonation front. Just going to leave this one up here because they all look essentially the same. We'll actually put one over here. We'll put this one over here too. Give you guys a little bit of a dual view of what's going on. Put that one off to the side. So this is... I gotta remember. Oh no, I've written on each one. So this is the base. I'll keep that one over there. This is the one that wanted to explode, and this be the collaboration. So there we go. We have been opened. I mean, they look like 3 completely different beers, at least when you look at the head. I mean, on the base, you have a little bit of a residual kind of head sticking around, kind of, what you'd come to expect from a beer that's sitting for a couple minutes from an Imperial Stout. Over here we have the adjunct-laden one from Weathered Souls. This head does not want to go away. So there's something making this kind of head go aggressive. I'm assuming it's got to be one of the adjuncts. I'm assuming even more it's probably the hazelnut causing that to happen. And then over here you have the collab they did with Islla and their sugar cookies and caramel and pecans in there, and that has killed the head completely on it. I mean, these are actually microcosms of what can happen with beers in general. You can have the adjuncts go crazy. You can have a beer that's normal, and you can have a certain adjuncts can actually kill a head on it. So it's a cool little like side by side of what can happen when you're dealing with adjuncts in beer. So let's go with the middle one. This is the base. That's really nice. I'm snorting some stout, by the way. That is a really well done. Let's put it this way. This is by far and away the best nose I've gotten off of any of the Black is Beautiful beers that I've done so far. It actually almost has like a rich kind of almost maple syrup component to it. It's got like coffee vibes without actually having coffee in it. Yeah, I mean, rich, dark, sweet, but not overly sweet. There's bittering coming from the actual malts itself, from that roasted malt, while getting a little bit of soft bittering from the actual hops itself. It has this rich kind of chocolate that almost leans into that chocolate, maple syrup that I was kind of talking about. More like a chocolate maple syrup, like almost like a Nutella syrup kind of thing going on. It smells really nice. Yeah, that's by far and away one of the best noses I got on any of the Black is Beautiful beers, which you'd kind of expect. You know, it is the brewery that wrote the recipe. It's going to work on their system. They know how their system works based off of the kind of bill and kind of recipe they wrote. So let's go over here to the adjunct blade one. This one's got a little bit of funkiness going on. And by funkiness, I mean it's got a little bit of ashy component to it. I've spoken about this in other beers. I've never actually followed through on trying to figure out that off flavor, that ashy. And when I say ashy, I literally mean like ashy, like how I've explained it previously is like if you've ever been to a house party and people pick a cup of beer that they've decided will be an ashtray, basically put out cigarettes, and then at the end of the night you're kind of cleaning up or next morning and you get a soft little whiff to that. So it's a combination of a soft beeriness with a little bit of kind of cigarette ashiness. That's kind of what I'm getting over here. And that coffee is there, but it's kind of almost combined with that ashy component, so it ends up coming off as like a weirdly roasted kind of coffee bean. But the stout is still there. It's rich. It's chocolate. It's not as sweet or vibrant as the one in the middle here. I'm kind of curious to see how that one tastes. So let's go to the old sugar cookie. Sugar cookie pecans. And, yeah. That's weird. Okay. What is that, man? That's the even weirdest one out of all of them. It smells like Italian espresso with caramel. I mean, there's that soft caramel in there, but man, it's weird. I don't hate it, but it's a coffee, but there's no coffee in this one. But the way the coffee comes off is like an Italian coffee, not like an Americanized version of coffee that you get. If you've had Italian coffee before, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a little bit more bittering, a little bit more kind of like savory, if I'm gonna use a word. It's weird. Three markedly distinct beers. I mean, these are way different than each other. It kind of has me kind of hot and bothered and kind of excited. Let's actually dive into the base. Cheers. That's good. That's a bittering, and this makes the most sense in the world now. It's a Russian Imperial Stout. It's not a base stout. This is a Russian Imperial Stout. I never looked at the recipe for this on purpose because I didn't want to know, because I knew I was going to be doing a bunch of these beers and I wanted to form my own thoughts rather than looking at the recipe and anticipating what it's going to be. These all these have leaned bittering, both from a roasted malt component and also hops to the point where I'm not quite sure. I know why they didn't put Russian Imperial Stout instead of because, you know, you're trying to do a Black is Beautiful beer. You're trying to call attention to systematic racism of people of color. Putting Russian Imperial Stout in it kind of doesn't make sense. If that's your goal, is in order to kind of help prop up a movement inside this community, because it's just like you're attaching a nationality to the movement, and it doesn't really make much sense. But this is a Russian Imperial Stout through and through. By that I mean it's rich, it's dense. The chocolate comes through, but there's a decent bittering component to it. Coffee, a decent amount of coffee in this one, even though it doesn't have coffee in it. Finishes dry. I mean, this is a really tasty beer. This is a really well done Core 4 Stout. Let's go over this little adjunct jammer. Cheers. Okay. So when I'm done with all these, I'm gonna almost knocked it over. When I'm done with all these, I'm gonna mix these all together. Do a little cuvee for you guys. I'm gonna mix these two together first and try that. These two mixed together are gonna be stellar. Sweeter over here. Sweeter and more. Everything's sharper. So here you get the malt, you get the chocolate. There's multiple layers of the chocolate. There's multiple layers to the bittering, and you get like kind of like that kind of rich, kind of shaved edge kind of coffee that you get from roasted malt in a lot of big imperial stouts, at least Core 4 ones, when they lean in this direction. Over here, it's very similar, except the sweetness is sharper, the coffee is sharper, the bittering is sharper. So if you're taking this beer and you're doing a rounded version of all those three main components, over here it's like this, and just everything's a more aggressive, sharper, pinpointy flavor profile. So there's less layers to it. It's just more of a singular sweetness, more of a singular bittering, more of a singular coffee. I think when you blend them both together, you're gonna end up with a really nice beer. I really do like the base most so far, but I'm kind of curious to see where this one goes. Sugar cookies. Okay. So, we have a beer, Core 4. We have a beer with caramel and coffee, and we have a beer with sugar cookies, pecans, and caramel. Ends up being the most bittering beer out of the bunch. The least sweet beer out of the bunch, which is just mind-blowingly crazy. Oddly enough, like I said, this one gave me that kind of subtle, ashy thing that I'm not a big fan of, that I can get in stouts from time to time. I can get them in all beers, actually, from time to time. I don't know that off flavor. I've never studied enough. That's a bad on me. You taste it over here. I smell it over here. I taste it over here. It's kind of weird in that way. This is just it's almost like, it's weird. This is by far and away my favorite of the bunch. I don't hate this beer, but it's just too sharp. And the things that's the reason why I like this, because there's a little bit of rounded edges on all the sharp components over here. And it's almost like all of the sharp components over here have been muted so that little subtle ashy component can kind of come up over here, because it's definitely the least sweetest one. It's definitely the less coffee one. It's definitely the least chocolate one. So it's not so much that this has a more kind of aggressive version of that kind of bittering ashiness. It's just everything else is dropped off, and that's why I believe I'm getting that. So it's a fun little side-by-side. I mean, the middle beer is, leaps and bounds, my favorite of the bunch. Not too sweet, not too bitter, showing multiple levels of each component in there, from the bittering to the chocolate to that little bit of coffee thing to the sweetness. Very nice. Over here, I'm super glad I went this direction, because everything's so much sharper over here and richer. That I think if I drank this first, it just drowned that out. Not bad, just I'm a fan of this one. This one kind of comes up third for me. If I drank this alone in its own setting, where does it come in? I don't know. That's why we don't call this science. But as I said from the beginning of the video, as I said from the beginning of the video, none of these words should ever keep you from buying any of these beers. These should be, hopefully these are all gone by the time this gets filmed, and this is more just kind of a platform to raise even just a extra dollar or a little bit more awareness for a cause that needs to be championed. But they're fun. They're fun beers. They're tasty beers. And yeah, let's do this cuvee stuff. So yeah, this is going to be really good, this kind of mixture here. I know I'm going to like this. That's really fucking good. Mix these two, people. If you got these two cans laying around, cuvee that stuff, son. because that's where it comes into its own. Good God. Exactly where I thought it'd go. So all those rich multiple layers are still exist in here, but get a little bit more volume on each one of them, and that's what this one brings in a very, very fun way. So even the coffee that wasn't in the original base beer is amplified by the addition of coffee over here, and just that sweetness from that caramel. Everything kind of elevates this beer over here. I like this so much, I don't want to pour that one in there. So what we're going to do is pour a little bit of this one in there, and pour a little bit of this one in there. So at least I get that middle one. Not saying this is not going to be a good whole mixture here, but cheers. Yeah, I'm glad I did that. The third one kind of mutes everything just a little bit. It's still tasty, but it mutes everything a little bit to the point where it's kind of like, I'm glad I mixed all three together. So, yeah, it was really fun. I mean, I've really kind of taken it upon myself to really try to push these beers and try to push the idea, because I believe it's the absolute minimal amount of good I can do in a situation that's pretty poopy. And for somebody to go out of their way, Tony, thank you very much again for sending these off and be able to actually kind of cover these beers from the original brewery is absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, brother, for sending these off. So let's talk about them. Are these some of the better stouts I've had? As like the base is the Weather Souls adjunct is quite nice. And while I wasn't a huge fan of the Islla Collab, that's not the point here. Like I said, these beers all are worth buying just for the sake of doing good. And I know that some people view that as a cop-out, or some people view that as bullshit, like, hey, tell me if it's good or not. Should I buy it? You should buy them, period. Let's talk about value and availability. I don't know. Tony, let us know what's what, and leave you with, if you like what, will you like these beers? If you like doing good things for good causes. So there you go. Another review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Down there, if you want to talk about it, Massive Beers. If you want to check me out doing the social media stuff, Beer Massive. Want to check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of Weathered Souls or some Black is Beautiful beer right now. And hopefully see you next time. Cheers.